And thank you, Johnny Donovan. Hour number 2 underway. Yes, a former member of the United States House of Representatives, albeit a short term, but nonetheless a productive term. And when I served in the 115th, I have to say, when Chairman Virginia Fox was controlling the Ed and Workforce Committee, we were doing great things on career and technical education, the Perkins Bill, trying to get higher ed to have some skin in the game on these student loans. Why, my seatmate on that very committee could very well be the next chairwoman of the House Republican Conference, and especially it could be a majority conference in the next Congress. Joining me now from the great state of New York, the 21st Congressional District, Representative Elise Stefanik. She is with us on the Rush Limbaugh program. Elise, nice to have you here.
Jason, it's so great to hear your voice and great to be with you today.
Yeah, well, I missed bringing you coffee at the Ed and Workforce Committee hearings.
Oh, you never did that. We worked very closely together and got a lot done.
We really did. If you look back at that in 2 short years, it's very much like the first 2 years of the Reagan era. In those first 2 Trump years, all of the things we accomplished, and not everybody agreed on everything, I get that, but you take a look at what got done then versus what's getting done in the 116th and the 117th, and it is just a grotesque stalemate with a bunch of people with masks running around doing nothing in the House.
It is. Congress has completely changed. It is being run by the far left, by AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Nancy Pelosi. This is the most progressive Congress in our nation's history, which is why it's so important that Republicans are united to win back the majority, to be a check on Biden's radical socialist agenda, including trillions of dollars of new taxes and trillions of new spending. And on the committee, we fight back every day against the far left Democrats.
Well, that's good to know. I think you came in 2 years before I got there, but as you point out, and I pointed out yesterday on the program, leadership, and I think this goes too far sometimes. You have to have an independent voice. But by the same token, there is truth here. You got to be a team player if you want to get something done. You can't let the perfect become the enemy of the good, and you have to unite. Now, in this great debate between the current chairwoman, Liz Cheney, and it looks like your rising ascendancy, is there any other kind of ascendancy? The fact is, Liz isn't being a team player. You've got to unite around something, and there are always people that can look towards the negative. But at some point, when you've got the majority, you have to get things done. Is that a fair assessment?
I think it's a fair assessment, and I listen to voters very closely in my district, and I know every member of Congress does across America. They want us to unify, and they believe President Trump is an important voice and an important role and the leading voice in the Republican Party and conservative movement. We have to work with President Trump to win back the majority, and we're going to. And that's what the members of Congress want, who are Republicans, and that's what the voters want in this country. So we can focus on talking about how dangerous and radical Nancy Pelosi's policies are and our solutions to grow the economy, create jobs, stand up for the Constitution, counter China, etc.
$6 trillion in new spending in 3 months won't grow the economy? I'm shocked.
Well, that's one of the reasons we had bad jobs numbers today. They're abysmal.
That's right.
Unemployment is up. Inflation is, people are seeing rising cost of goods. And small businesses can't hire workers because of the continued additional federal unemployment assistance.
Yeah, so much for MTT, or MMT, I should say, modern monetary theory. This is nothing more than Keynesianism and drag. They're going to inflate their way out of the debt, and when you do that, you're going to have asset bubbles and rising prices eventually, and that's exactly what's happening, which is no good for anyone. Look, you mentioned something about President Trump and your vigorous defense of him in this unwarranted impeachment saga, which and you were on the Intel Committee, but I went down when I was in the House and looked at the intelligence. This whole Russian hoax was, I don't want to be too dramatic here, but it comes pretty darn close to a coup being perpetrated by people who knew better. And we've got to have some FISA reforms so that they don't become a rubber stamp to have an opposition out of power going after a newly elected president.
You're exactly right. What we uncovered, and it really took the Republicans in the House to uncover this, was the abuse in the FBI, the abuse by Jim Comey, which I was the first one to ask him why he didn't follow the law to inform Congress when they wrongly and illegally opened up a counterintelligence investigation. And then when it came to the FISA, we now know that that was illegal. So these reforms, if people want to protect our constitutional liberties and freedoms in this country and guard from significant government overreach, this is why we need to elect conservative Republicans. And I think, what the Democrats accuse the Republicans of is actually what they did for 4 years. They treated President Trump like an illegitimate president and continued to perpetrate the Russia hoax.
I'll go a step further, and I can do this now that I'm a talk show host instead of a member of Congress. You see, there are liberties here, Elise. But what they did in trying to overthrow a duly elected president through the bowels of the DOJ and a corrupt FBI is far worse than what happened on January 6th. I'll just say that flat out. And this is where we've got to quit at this time playing small ball and focus on the big picture. And you just mentioned it. And that is, if you can, and now they're going after Rudy Giuliani. A third world banana republic lets the victor put their opponents in jail. We are in danger of losing the republic here. And if we don't look at the big picture, getting voting regularities or voting ballot integrity right, making certain we have free speech from big tech, restoring law and order while at the same time having due process rights for everyone, not to mention not exploiting a pandemic for political gain so they can command and control America. We can talk about the minutia of, like you and I on ed and workforce or infrastructure, everything else, and it's important. But the fact is, we are now at this point in our history where the very fabric of the republic is being threatened.
These are big fights, and this is why we need strong, unified leadership. You're exactly right about the fight with big tech. We see big tech censorship. Actually, this week, they suspended my communications director, and the timing was just perfect from their perspective as we are working to run for House Republican Conference Chair. We see big tech censoring conservatives. They never seem to censor liberals, though. We also
Isn't that amazing?
It's amazing. And we also saw the blackout of the accurate Hunter Biden story from the New York Post of Hunter Biden's ties with the Chinese Communist Party. And all the tech companies colluded and completely blacked that story out before the election. That was a form of election meddling. So we need to break up these big tech corporations. We need to pursue antitrust policies. These are big, big fights, and this is why we need to step up and unite and work with President Trump to win next November.
It does us no. I mean, the idea of big tech now suppressing and censoring your communications director, I might understand it if they went after your legislative director, my old buddy Merrick. I mean, I get that. But your communications director, that's the last straw.
Yeah, I have a great team. And some of them work for you, Jason.
But, you said something very important there, Elise, and that is we're going to have to be unified going forward. I'm a little bit perplexed when we face all of these challenges, and these are truly, to use that overused word, existential. When you look at that, why is anybody still dwelling on Donald Trump, who brought the working man and woman back to the Republican Party?
Because I think the Democrats can't get over his win in 2016. I remember when we did polling in my district, the only unifying issue of Democrats was wanting to defeat President Trump. And we are seeing that they are obsessed. But what they don't realize is President Trump has grown the party. Just look at my district. My district voted for Obama twice, and President Trump won it overwhelmingly by double digits. He spoke to the hardworking families across this country who felt left behind, and he had a vision and delivered results for economic opportunity. Why
would Republicans, and I'll be honest about this, the current chairwoman, Liz Cheney, why are those sorts of Lincoln Project Republicans so obsessed with Trump?
I think they're corporate donors. I think they're far left donors. It is sad how they are now part of the deranged far left. But you know what? I represent 700,000 people in my district who are hardworking Americans. I care much more about what they think than the pedophiles at the Lincoln Project.
Wow, that's pretty tough. Yesterday I called them political pedophiles, but I mean, no modifier needed, I guess. I guess, if in fact, and I think you will rise to the conference chairwoman in the great tradition of Kathy McMorris Rogers. But if you take a look at that and you're successful next week, and I think you will be, and the Republicans take back the House, what is on the agenda? Repealing Section 230, which should have been done in the NDAA process this cycle, but what is your agenda?
Repealing Section 230 is absolutely on the agenda. Kathy McMorris Rogers is actually leading the effort when it comes to countering and combating big tech. Countering China is going to be really, really important. We have the current president, President Biden, who is soft on China, and his family does business with the Chinese Communist Party. That's an existential global threat, and the Republicans have the House China Task Force to lay out all of our policies, growing the economy, cutting taxes, reducing regulations, investing in American energy independence, basically rolling back all of these very progressive policies Biden has put into place to provide economic opportunity and economic growth.
And certainly not federalizing state elections as H.R. 1 would do, an assault on,
Absolutely,
I think, the Constitution.
And the opposite of that is making sure we have election security and election integrity, and making sure that's at the state level. I support the audit in Arizona. Transparency and answers for the American people are a good thing, but we need to fix our election systems and the unconstitutional overreach that we saw in certain states this past November.
Well, I think you're going to be the next conference chair, and it was fun serving with you, albeit a short time, but keep doing what you're doing and make certain that, Trump transformed a lot of Republicans into opening their eyes into what really, really is happening to the working man and woman in America. And it really has given people a lot of courage to say things and behave in ways they wouldn't have done before. And I think we need to keep up with that and have an open mind towards that.
We need fighters. President Trump is a fighter on behalf of the American people, and voters want fighters to stand up for them, and that's what I'm committed to doing, to unify the message, to earn the support of my Republican colleagues, and fight for hardworking American families.
Representative Elise Stefanik, thanks so much for stopping in on the Rush Limbaugh program today.
Thank you, Jason.
You bet. Nice talking to you. Back with more of Rush after this.